Yeah, I kind of made it my mantra though this time, where it's not about trying. I mean, I'd love to sell millions of records. I'd love to tour the world over with, #1 records and stuff on the radio. But I also understand that at a granular level, it's more about finding joy in your purpose. And if you can have any bit of your life that is resembling what you love to do, and day in and day out, you get to do that. If there's any level of being able to make a living at it, then that's success. Like that is what's winning.
He was in a boy band in the 90s, has made the switch to country music, and he's opened for Taylor Swift, Jason Aldean, Rascal Flatts, and he has a new album coming out. Super excited. Chase Mitchell is here. Welcome, Chase.
Thank you so much for having me.
I am excited to have you here. We have to talk about 90s.
Yes.
Okay, so you were in a boy band called Lucky.
Yes.
The youngest member. I need some details on this.
So I was 9 years old when I got signed to Lucky by Maurice Starr, who was the founder of New Kids on the Block, Menudo. I know that some of those names probably this generation doesn't recognize, but they were like the original NSYNC, Backstreet Boys, if you will. They were the original boy bands. And yeah, I got cast early on. I was 9, turning 10 years old. That is pretty much what stepped me into the world, what pushed me into the world of what could be if you followed your dreams in music. We started working with Radio Disney like early on. They had just started and launched their radio, literally their Disney's radio station. It was an AM station at the time, which is kind of, being in radio, you probably realize.
AM.
Right. They were trying to branch out and really kind of get more listenership. So they were working with like Destiny's Child, Vitamin C, Outkast, ourselves, Lil Romeo. And yeah, it was like a whirlwind. It seemed like it all went by in such a flash. But I'm forever grateful for those years. And it's what got me into the music business, which would eventually lead me to Nashville and to where I'm at today. So
how did you make that switch from kind of the pop 90s, because that had a real distinct sound to it.
Oh yeah.
And then, of course, and then there's 90s country, which was amazing. Amazing.
Yeah.
But how did you make that switch into country?
Well, so the band started kind of falling apart a little bit. I shouldn't say falling apart. I was, a kid. I was the youngest of 3 in the band. So the oldest was Tim Brantley. He was like 21, 22. Justin Guzman was about 19, 18. And they all kind of started wanting to do their own creative thing. I thought, you know what, let me just go back to school. I was like 13, 14 years old at the time when we decided to.
Probably a good idea to go back to school.
I was like, let me try to be like a normal kid for a minute and see if there's anything else in this world or life that like gets me going. I found out really quickly that music was really just what I was put on this earth to do. And so when it went through my 8th grade year, I pretty much sat down with my parents and were like, please just hear me out. If I promise to get good grades and focus and put in the work, will you homeschool me? Will you let me pursue music again? Because we did have a couple contacts in Nashville. I'd opened up for Mark Wills, which is huge 90s.
Yes,
if you're loving 90s, I mean, Jacob's Ladder, I mean, like, come on. And so we reached out. We quickly kind of learned it really doesn't mean anything if you're not in Nashville.
Yes.
And so I right away started making the weekly trips up from Atlanta. My mom would drive me up in her little station wagon and drop me off. Back in the day, early 2000s, Music Row was a little more simple. It wasn't as kind of like touristy or like just like super congested. You could just start around breakfast time on one avenue, like 17th Street or 16th Street, and I would just literally walk up and down with my little briefcase, my EPK, some album demos and stuff, and pass them out. And I did that for about 2.5, 3 years before. Yeah, it was a little insane. I feel like at a certain point, it's kind of like most parents would probably be like, "All right, dude," but they believed in me and they kept taking me weekly up here, to Nashville on trips. And so I eventually landed a booking contract with Buddy Lee. I got signed by Tony Conway, who was the president of Buddy Lee, which was insane. That story's a little crazy. We had a lot of showcases we put on each month, and most of the people that would show up were only there for the free food and drinks. They didn't have like any contacts or any real means of helping me with any opportunity. But to be honest, looking back at it, I'm super grateful for all of those people that showed up, because I would have been playing to a dead room.
Right.
So it's kind of like give and take. But eventually we got around to playing to some industry people. Donna Lee and Dwayne Brown caught wind of what we were doing, and they were like, what's funny is we think that we need to get you in touch with Tony Conway. And I had actually sent, this is what's really weird about this town. It's much smaller than you think.
Yes.
I had sent an email blast out about a year prior to a bunch of agents in town. And the one thing that I thought was cool about Buddy Lee was, Buddy Lee Attractions, was they actually had pictures next to all the agents. I don't know if this is like manipulative, if this is bad of me or not, but it all came full circle and worked itself out. I had saw Joan Sawtell's picture, and she looked to be about maybe my grandmother's age. And so I tried appealing to that grandmother instinct, wrote this like 2-page long email, never heard a word back, right? But the reason why Dwayne Brown and Donna Lee from Buddy Lee were in the audience that night is they had finally caught wind of one of my showcase invites. And apparently, Joan had forwarded that email out to the company.
Oh, interesting.
And Tony Conway, who was the president at the time, said, listen, if we ever run into this kid in town,
there you go.
we'll have him, come in the fold and we'll bring him in. So it was kind of like a litmus test in a sense. And so I'm blessed to say Tony's still my manager to this day. He's my manager. Awesome. I've worked with him for over 15 years now. Wow. And the one thing that he said back then, and he still says it to this day, it's not going to be easy. It's sometimes not going to be fun. But if you keep the faith and you do the work, you'll have a shot.
Wow.
That's where we're at today.
You're right. It is a small town, and it's kind of like sometimes you just never know who other people are going to be.
Right.
Also, some of those people you're like, well, they didn't really have the contacts then. Who knows where they are now? And
right.
You know what I mean? This town is very, very small.
Well, what's crazy is like half of the interns back in the day are pretty much running all the companies today.
Right, exactly. So now, I know that, starting at such a young age, that for anyone can kind of take a toll on you. I know you kind of struggle with some stuff. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, when you do something for so long, you start to kind of hold on too tight, and you start to forget why you're even doing it in the first place. And so when that started happening to me was around when I kind of had met who's now my wife, and I was like, man, I know I'm not in a good place. I need to step back for a minute. And I did. And when I went through these phases of trying to kind of rebuild a whole nother life outside of music, I realized I just wasn't really in tune with my purpose. And so a few years went by where I was kind of in like a really dark place. Like I was bitter, holding on to a lot of resentment, when really I had to let go of expectations and I had to just kind of lean back more into my purpose. And I remember the one thing that kind of struck me to the core was I was trying to be like, and there's nothing against selling insurance or cars or whatever. And I kept trying to rebuild my life in some way to be able to be a good husband and potentially a good father. But my wife could tell that I was just kind of a little bit miserable. And so she was like, Chase, if you could only see yourself the way that I see you, I feel like you could work this out pretty quickly. And what she basically was saying is, I know that you were the happiest when you were doing music. I kind of got her blessing and my family's blessing to kind of like lean back into pursuing where I once left off. And the biggest was Tony picking right back up where we left off all those years later. And I kind of made it my mantra though this time, where it's not about trying. I mean, I'd love to sell millions of records. I'd love to tour the world over with, #1 records and stuff on the radio. But I also understand that at a granular level, it's more about finding joy in your purpose. And if you can have any bit of your life that is resembling what you love to do, and day in and day out, you get to do that. If there's any level of being able to make a living at it, then that's success. Like that is what's winning. And so I had to kind of bring myself back to that level, because for so many years, it was all about like, those expectations were so high from very young, at 9 years old, touring with some of the biggest artists. And it was always about kind of just, everything was just out of grasp, where I had to bring it back and go, you know what? If I get to play music and people show up and I get paid to do it and I get to write songs and I can provide a life for my family doing it, that is all I really care about. And as long as I'm chasing my purpose, chase your purpose,
and
then I'm good. Yes. And so I had to kind of literally make it a brand so that I don't forget.
Yes.
And then it kind of turned into something bigger than itself, which I think is what music's meant to be. And us as artists, we're not meant to just be so caught up in our own crap. We're meant to, kind of inspire and make it about something more than even just the music. And so that's kind of where my new whole mission and why I do music is, it's my purpose, but it's also to inspire others to chase their purpose.
So now that's the name of the album, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Chase Your Purpose.
Yep.
And tell us, it's coming out next year?
Yes, next year.
And it's,
we don't have an exact date just yet. We're working on getting that date nailed down. But yeah.
Okay, and the new song, Back Road,
yes,
that's the first release off the album, right?
Yes.
And so hopefully you're going to play that for us a little bit later.
Absolutely.
Okay, good, very good. So I want to talk about being in Napa.
Yeah.
Because I'm from Northern California.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, so I grew up in Sonoma County,
Ooh,
which is
that's beautiful.
Look,
oh my gosh.
See,
that's beautiful.
That's what I'm talking about. See, we will 100% whine about wine about being the better wine country.
Oh my gosh.
But Napa is also beautiful with amazing wines as well. So you were playing live in the vineyard, right?
Yes, what an honor.
Tell us about that.
I felt so they have two live in the vineyards. They have one that's more pop oriented and one that's more country oriented. And because I've kind of split throughout my career the best of both worlds, pop and country, I've been blessed with the opportunity to do both. And so we started with the pop one. I did truthfully kind of feel like a fish out of water because I'm still a country boy at heart. And there's so many amazing pop artists out there we got to play with, like Jax and BB Rexa and Alec Benjamin and so many others to list. I was like one, besides Ingrid Andress and me, we were like the only country artists out there. But it was amazing. Every day when we were driving to the venues or to the hotel, I would just look around and I'd be like, dude, are we in like another country? Like, are we literally in like Italy right now or something? Yeah, it was amazing. Shout out to Live in the Vineyard and Bobby and Lauren for having us out there. That was amazing. Can't wait to do it again in April, except we'll be with some Nashville folks in April doing Live in the Vineyard Goes Country.
Yes.
So I'm definitely looking forward to being out there.
Okay. All right. See, we got the California connection.
Yes.
We love that. And so do you like wine?
I do love wine.
Okay.
I do love wine. I like to...
I was going to have to maybe kick you out.
No. I do love wine. But I would be remiss if I were to say that I'm like an everyday wine guy. I'm more of like a bush latte kind of guy.
Oh, there you go. Very nice. Very
Keep it simple.
Yes. Okay. All right. Okay. Well, before you go, we do want to play a little game.
All right.
Called Truth or Truth. And and Chase Mitchell is going to stick around and play his new song, Back Road. And you can watch that by clicking on the link in the description. So when we come back, it's Truth or Truth.
It's Truth or Truth.
All right, it's time for my world famous game, Truth or Truth. Chase, are you ready?
As ready as I'll ever be.
Okay. Now, I pulled out one of these hats. You're going to get one of these hats.
Yes, I love hats.
Okay, this has all the questions that I'm going to have you pick.
Okay.
But before we do that, I did notice your hat. Is there a story with the hat?
Yes. So as we were talking about earlier, coming back into music, I kind of had made it a purpose to say, look, it's not going to be, a lot of artists like to run with a logo that's like their name.
Right.
And I thought, man, I need to do something that's a little bit bigger than myself, like a mascot.
Okay.
And so my oldest, Brooklyn, she's a little bit of an artist. She's 9 years old. She's won so many art awards. And so my best friend Mark and I kind of sat her down and we're like, dude, why don't you draw us something like that maybe represents what you think dad is, right?
Aww.
And so she was like, well, Dad, you're a little bit of an astronaut. You're a little crazy. You're out there, right? And so there she started drawing the astronaut.
Okay.
And then she put the eyes as an X and a cross because she's like, Dad, you're a little good and you're a little bad,
okay,
as Mom would say. And then she, kind of handwritten my name as best as she could. She was like 7.5, 8 when she drew. It was about a year and a half ago. But it became more of a mascot, and I'm proud to say that my daughter had a lot to do with it, which makes it even cooler for me as a father to run with it. And we also give a percentage of the online merch sales back to music for school, like music instruments for schools. So
very nice.
We've been able to, in the last year, donate about 6 different guitars to different schools here in Nashville, as well as Pensacola, Florida. And it's been awesome. I still have a lot of plans for what I want this to be and could be. But so far, it's been amazing. A lot of people, even Jax, if the people on TikTok, Jax has been blowing up. She saw the hat and was like, dude, I got to get one. I was like, dude, I will give you all the ones you want.
A hat.
So, and we've got some content we're going to put out with her where she's repping it and she believes in it as well.
Fantastic.
And so, yeah, it's a cool little story, and I'm really proud of it.
Well, I love it. Okay, great. Well, we're going to do Truth or Truth with my Up and Country hat here that you're going to take home. So
yes.
You get to pick your own question.
All right, I'll even do it not looking. Wait a second. What's the biggest prank you've ever played on someone? Oh man.
Are you
got me
are you a
stumped.
prank,
I'm
are you
not
a
really a
prank person?
prankster.
No.
I'm more of like a, well.
Did you ever do like April Fools or anything like that?
No. I honestly can't think of a prank I've ever pulled on
You're
anyone.
too
That's
nice.
sad. I'm
Too
the guy
nice.
that gets pranked.
Right,
That's
right.
why I've never. I'm always the dude that gets pranked. Can I pick another one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right. I'm too empathetic to pull pranks on people. What's your most bizarre nickname? Well, I don't know if can I say it?
Sure.
I'm pretty much like half my family always would call me like shithead growing up, like my uncles and stuff like that. So I wouldn't say it's that bizarre. I'm sure there's other guys out there that have had their uncles call them shitheads all the time, but that was
Okay.
the one I appreciate the most was Chaser. My pappy would always call me Chaser.
Okay, well that's good. I like that.
So,
I like that. Okay.
Most bizarre shithead, the one I prefer, Chaser.
Okay.
Yeah.
I promise not to call you the first one.
All right. I won't hold it to you though if you do. You won't be the first. What did you see at your first concert? Or who did you see at your first concert? NSYNC, to be honest. My first concert was the NSYNC Christmas. So, first real concert, I should say. So I was a huge NSYNC fan from the get-go. I will say this. Do you remember back when you could go to Target? Back when like CDs were a big deal.
CDs? What are those?
Right, what are those? They would have a kiosk, and if you didn't have the $18.99 or the $21.99 to buy the whole album, a lot of artists would have like a $2.99 or like you remember what I'm talking about? The little like 2-song thing?
Yes.
Well, I remember the first time nobody had heard of NSYNC. My sister, no one that in my crew that would have heard of a boy band. But I remember that I had a couple dollars. We were about to go to Thanksgiving down in Florida from Atlanta. And so I was like, what am I going to spend my money on? And so instead of getting a snack, I got one of the CDs, because I've always been into music my whole life. I got the very first NSYNC demo, which was basically the I Want You Back and the I Want You Back Germany edition. So there's 2 different cuts. I wore that sucker out for weeks. And then when we got back, that's when my whole family and my sister, my brother, all of us kind of became believers because no one knew who NSYNC was at the time. They literally were not that big. And so I went to Macy's when they were doing parking lot concerts back in the day in Atlanta. And I got to see NSYNC literally in their very like infantile stages, which was amazing because to look back at how big they became was nuts. But just us and a few hundred girls, basically, it was like me and like a few hundred girls got to see NSYNC.
Smart guy. Smart guy.
Got to see NSYNC. And then about a year later, they had blown up. And I would say the first official concert, because it wasn't like in a parking lot, like that kind of doesn't count, was at the Fox Theater in Atlanta, and it was their Christmas tour.
Oh, nice.
They just put out that Christmas album, which you gotta love some NSYNC Christmas songs, man.
Well,
so that was my first.
There you go.
Yeah.
Now I have to ask, who was the first country concert?
First country concert, probably would have been Tracy Byrd.
Okay.
Yeah, they're in Cumming, Georgia. Tracy Byrd or the Charlie's Daniels Band.
Okay.
Yeah, because they were like doing like a dual bill. So it was that was like the first real country concert that I went to. Yeah.
There you go. And you haven't looked back, right?
I have not looked back since, no.
Do you want to do one more?
One more, let's do it.
Let's
do it.
Just because we can.
Just because we can. What is the one thing you would stand in line an hour for? Well, thank God you can do it online these days. A Taylor Swift ticket.
Okay. Right?
Apparently that's like the it thing these days. I've opened for Taylor, and she's amazing. But these days, don't know her that well these days. So my wife's obsessed. My kids are obsessed. I would gladly stand in line for an hour for a Taylor Swift ticket.
If it was only an hour and you get the tickets, it'd be no problem.
It'd be more
right?
like a week these days.
Right, exactly.
They don't even do in-person tickets, I don't think.
I think it's all online. Online. Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to be here, play the game, do the interview, play us a little song. If you want to see Chase play his song, click on the link in the description. So thanks so much, and we wish you all the best in the career. We're going to keep an eye on you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for watching Up in Country. Be sure to like and subscribe and leave us a comment. We do new episodes every Tuesday, and be sure to follow Up in Country on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. And you can follow me too at Sue Bonzell on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok.